My name is Mia Bennett. I'm 35 years old, and that Christmas Eve changed the course of my life forever. On Christmas Eve, my entire family had gathered at my parents' house in Ohio. The dining table was filled with roasted ham, mashed potatoes, pie, and the sound of laughter. Then, out of nowhere, my younger sister, Chloe, leaned across the table and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "You're 35, and still not married? Wow. Christmas must be pretty lonely for you." The entire room burst into laughter. My father laughed the hardest. My mother, still holding her glass of wine, smiled gently and said, "Oh, she's just joking." I quietly set my drink down on the table. I didn't say a single word, but no one sitting at that table knew that I hadn't flown back to Ohio just to celebrate Christmas. I had come because of a secret I had uncovered only 1 week earlier. 7 days before Christmas, a file landed on my desk in my Chicago office. At first, it looked like any ordinary stack of documents. But the moment I reached the last page, my heart nearly stopped. There was a signature above my printed name. It looked like mine, but it wasn't. Someone had forged my signature. Using that fake signature, they had approved a contract I had never seen and never agreed to. That was the moment I booked my flight to Ohio. I wasn't there for Christmas dinner. I was there to uncover the truth. If you enjoy calm, emotional, and realistic family drama stories, you're in the right place. Grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to know who I really am. Because the woman my family describes, and the woman I actually became, are two completely different people. I'm an acoustician. I design spaces where sound behaves exactly the way it's supposed to. Recording studios, large lecture halls, even a children's hospital in Chicago, where I designed an acoustic system that softened the harsh sounds of medical equipment, making the rooms quieter and more comforting for young patients. I built my business from nothing, just a rented desk, and an old calibration microphone I had borrowed. Today, clients fly me across the country to create spaces where silence sounds as beautiful as music. But to my family, I was simply the daughter who left home. The woman who didn't get married on schedule. The one whose life became the punchline at every family gathering. I hadn't been back to Columbus in 2 years. Honestly, I hadn't planned to return this Christmas either. Then on a Tuesday morning, I received a phone call. It was Dale, the same veteran technician who still worked on the factory floor at Bennett Acoustics, and the same man I had once taught how to solder years ago. He lowered his voice and said, "Mia, something big is about to happen. Your dad is getting ready to sell the company's panel line to a group of investors. It's a huge deal, but something doesn't add up." I stayed silent. Then he continued, "He's telling everyone that all the designs have already been legally transferred to the family and that you personally signed every document." My hands instantly turned cold because I had never signed anything. At that moment, I knew this Christmas wasn't going to end with a family joke. It was going to end with a truth that would change the Bennett family forever. The Christmas dinner table looked peaceful on the outside, but inside me, a storm of questions was raging. Chloe speared a piece of carrot with her fork, looked at me, and smiled. "I mean, we've all built something with our lives. I run the company's marketing. Dad built the business into what it is today. And Mia." She paused with a grin. "What is it that you do again?" "Make rooms quieter." Once again, the table erupted in laughter. My uncle chuckled and added, "Maybe that's why she's always so quiet." I simply took a sip of water. None of this was new to me. It had been this way ever since I was a child. Every dream I had was dismissed as unnecessary, while every small accomplishment Chloe made was celebrated like a major victory. I had spent years working at the company too, but today no one even mentioned it. My father straightened his napkin and said proudly, "Chloe has given the company a whole new identity. The investors are very impressed with her." Chloe smiled proudly as she raised her glass. "Everything changes next month. New investment, a new factory, a new beginning." She spoke with the confidence of someone who believed the future already belonged to her. I watched her quietly. Only I knew what that future was really built on. If Dale was telling the truth, the entire deal was built on forged signatures. And if that was true, the investors wouldn't be the only victims. It was a serious criminal offense. Just then, my phone vibrated softly. I glanced down at the screen beneath the table. The message was only one sentence long. "We found the file. The original contract is here." You were right. It was from my attorney, Rachel Collins. My heart started pounding. That meant my signature wasn't the only thing that had been forged. The original agreement still existed. Someone had deliberately hidden it and replaced it with a fraudulent contract. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Across the table, my father was confidently praising the investors and talking about the company's future. He had no idea that just a few moments earlier, the entire foundation of his plan had begun to collapse. A little later, my mother smiled at me and asked, "Mia, why are you so quiet? This is supposed to be a happy day." For the first time that evening, I looked around the table. "Yes," I replied calmly. "It is a happy day." My voice was so steady that no one suspected a thing. Chloe laughed. "See? Our sister finally smiled." I smiled too. But it wasn't a smile of happiness. It was the smile of someone who already knew the truth. After dinner, everyone gathered around the Christmas tree in the living room. The children began opening their presents. Laughter, holiday music, and cameras flashing filled the house. Quietly, I slipped away and walked toward my father's study. It was the same room I wasn't allowed to enter without permission when I was a child. I slowly opened the door. Everything looked exactly the way I remembered. The large wooden desk, the old company photographs hanging on the walls, and, in the corner, the same steel filing cabinet. I took a deep breath. If Dale had been telling the truth, the answers were somewhere inside that room. And tonight, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I quietly closed the door to my father's study. Outside, I could still hear the children laughing, the soft Christmas music playing in the background, and the clatter of dishes from the kitchen. But inside the room, there was only silence. The kind of silence I had built my career understanding. My eyes slowly scanned the walls. Framed photographs showed my father accepting awards over the years. Beneath every picture were the same words: Bennett Acoustics, a family legacy. I let out a bitter smile and whispered, "A family legacy, but whose family?" I walked straight to the steel filing cabinet. The first drawer was locked. So was the second. When I pulled on the third drawer, it slid open without a key. Inside were dozens of neatly organized folders. Red, blue, black. Each one labeled with a different year. I flipped through them quickly. Then one gray folder caught my attention. A white label on the front read, "Panel line, transfer documents." My heartbeat quickened. I pulled the folder out. The first page contained an executive summary prepared for the investors. The second listed the company's valuation. Then I turned to the third page. My hands froze. There it was. A signature above my printed name. The exact same forged signature. The one I had seen in the copy delivered to my office a week earlier. I studied the document carefully. Then I noticed the date. The contract had been created 6 months ago. As I kept reading, something else caught my eye. The witness signature belonged to someone named Nathan Brooks. I knew that name well. He had never been the company's legal counsel. He was an outside consultant who had left the company 2 years earlier. So, how had he become the witness on this agreement? Without wasting another second, I pulled out my phone and began photographing every page. 1, 2, 3. Within minutes, the entire folder was safely stored on my phone. Just as I snapped the last picture, I heard footsteps outside the study. Someone was walking toward the door. I quickly returned the folder to the drawer and slid it shut. The doorknob turned. My father stepped inside. He stopped for a moment. "Mia?" I answered calmly. I was just looking at the old photographs. He studied me for a few seconds. Then he smiled. "You always liked this room." I smiled back. "Yes, because the truth never stays hidden here for very long." His smile disappeared for just a moment. "What exactly does that mean?" I shrugged. Nothing in particular. He didn't say another word, but for the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Maybe he had finally realized that I hadn't come home just to celebrate Christmas. The two of us walked back to the living room together. Chloe was excitedly telling everyone about the final meeting with the investors scheduled for the following week. After that, she said proudly, the company's history will change forever. I looked at her and thought to myself, yes, history is about to change, but not in the way you're expecting. Just then, my phone vibrated again. A second message from Rachel Collins appeared on the screen. I've completed the preliminary signature analysis. They're not just forged, someone scanned your genuine signature and digitally replicated it. This is a very strong case. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Now I had more than suspicion. I had evidence. And I made my decision. Tomorrow morning, when the investors gathered for their final meeting, I would be there too. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same forged signature. The same question echoed through my mind over and over again. If my father really did this, why? Was it simply to close the deal with the investors? Or was there an even bigger secret hiding behind it? The next morning was cold, the day after Christmas. Snow drifted gently from the gray sky. Breakfast was unusually quiet. The laughter from the night before had disappeared. Everyone seemed tense. My father kept checking his watch. Chloe was making last-minute edits to a presentation on her laptop. I acted as though I had no idea what was going on. After breakfast, my father put on his coat and said, "We need to get to the office. The investors will be here by 11. Chloe smiled confidently. Today's going to change our lives. Without saying a word, I picked up my coat. My father looked at me in surprise. Where are you going? I answered calmly. I'm coming to the office too. I haven't been back in 2 years. I think I have the right to see my old workplace. He stared at me for a few moments. Then he forced a smile. Of course, come with us. But for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The Bennett Acoustics building looked exactly the way I remembered. The gray walls, the glass entrance, the old clock hanging behind the reception desk. The only difference was the crowd. Men and women in expensive suits filled the lobby. Investors, attorneys, financial advisors. They had all come for one reason: to buy the company. As soon as I walked inside, several longtime employees recognized me. Dale hurried over and quietly shook my hand. The original file is safe, he whispered. No one suspects a thing. I gave him a slight nod. The conference room doors were already open. A long table stretched across the room. My father and Chloe sat on one side. The investors sat on the other. In the center of the table was the same folder containing my forged signature. The meeting began. My father stood and addressed the room with complete confidence. 50 years ago, I started this company in a small workshop. Today, we're taking it to the next level. Every design, every right, and every piece of intellectual property has been legally transferred to the company. The investors nodded. Then one of the attorneys asked, have all inventors and original designers signed the transfer agreements? Without hesitating, my father replied, yes. Every document has been properly executed and is legally valid. Chloe immediately opened the folder and slid the final page across the table. Here's the signed approval. I quietly stood up from my chair. Every head in the room turned toward me. I picked up the folder. I stared at the signature for a long moment. Then I spoke calmly. That isn't my signature. The room fell completely silent. The color drained from my father's face. Chloe looked at me in disbelief. Mia, what are you talking about? I reached into my bag and pulled out another folder. Inside were the original documents, photographs, and the preliminary report from a forensic document examiner. I placed everything on the table. I didn't come here with a suspicion. I came here with evidence. The lead attorney for the investors immediately pulled both folders toward him. He carefully examined every page. No one spoke. The only sound in the room was the turning of paper. Several minutes later, he looked up. His eyes locked on my father. Mr. Bennett, I'm afraid we're going to have to suspend this transaction immediately. For the first time, my father sounded shaken. This is all a misunderstanding. I cut him off. No, Dad. It isn't a misunderstanding. It's forgery, and, in that moment, I realized this was only the beginning, because the biggest secret of all had yet to be revealed. The conference room was so quiet that I could hear people breathing. The lead attorney for the investors placed the two folders side by side. First, he examined the forged agreement. Then, he carefully compared it with the original contract. A few moments later, he removed his glasses and spoke in a grave tone. Mr. Bennett, there are clear discrepancies between these two documents. And if this preliminary forensic report is accurate, we're not dealing with a simple administrative mistake. We're looking at possible document fraud. A bead of sweat rolled down my father's forehead. Chloe immediately tried to take control of the situation. Wait a minute. Maybe an older version of the file was included by mistake. I looked directly at her. An older version? I reached into my bag and pulled out another file. This is the company's server activity log. Every eye in the room turned toward me. According to these records, the agreement wasn't edited just once. It was modified on 3 separate dates, and every edit was made from the same computer. One of the investors' attorneys asked, "Whose computer?" Without hesitation, I answered, "The one in the marketing office." The color instantly drained from Chloe's face. That's a lie. I calmly slid another page across the table. This is the IT department's report. The last person to access the file was logged in under your user account. Chloe turned to my father in panic. Dad, say something, but this time, he remained silent. He had no answer. Just then, the conference room door opened. Dale, the company's longest-serving employee, walked inside. He was carrying a small wooden box. He walked straight to the table and said, "I think it's time this was returned to its rightful owner." He placed the box in front of me. I slowly opened it. Inside was an old engineering drawing mounted in a wooden frame. In the corner, written in blue ink, was a signature. Mia Bennett. The investors leaned forward in surprise. Dale spoke quietly. This is the original prototype. The very first acoustic panel that became the foundation of the company's entire product line. My father immediately objected. That was company property. For the first time, Dale interrupted him. No, sir. Mia built it herself one winter night in the workshop. I was there with her. She designed it. She tested it. And before she finished, she signed the inside of the frame with her own name. Every person in the room looked at me in silence. Dale carefully turned the frame over. There, carved into the back of the wood, was my original handwritten signature. Beside it, a date from 12 years earlier. The lead investor slowly exhaled. So you're saying? I finished his sentence. I'm saying that the product line you're trying to purchase was never legally transferred to the company in the first place. The room erupted into shocked whispers. The lead attorney immediately closed the folder. In that case, this transaction is officially suspended. No agreement will move forward until ownership rights and the authenticity of every signature have been fully investigated. My father gripped the edge of his chair for support. For the first time, the confidence in Chloe's eyes had been replaced by fear. I looked at both of them. Surprisingly, I didn't feel anger. I felt disappointment. For years, I had hoped that one day they would be proud of my work. Instead, they had tried to claim it as their own. Quietly, I picked up my folder and walked toward the door. Just as I reached it, the lead investor called after me. Ms. Bennett. I stopped and turned around. He looked at me and said, "If all of this evidence proves to be authentic, then perhaps we shouldn't be negotiating with the company. We should be negotiating with you." I simply nodded. Let's uncover the truth first. Then I walked out of the conference room. What I didn't know was, later that very evening, someone was about to reveal a 30-year-old secret my father had kept hidden from everyone. That same evening, I left the company building and walked toward the parking lot. A cold December wind swept through the air as light snow drifted down from the gray sky. I had just reached my car when someone called out behind me. Mia. I turned around. It was Walter Hayes. He had been one of the company's original board members and had retired years ago. When I was a little girl, I used to call him Uncle Walter. He slowly walked toward me. In his hands was an old brown envelope. He held it out and said, "This should have reached you a long time ago." I accepted it confused. My name was written across the front. Beneath it was a date. 10 years earlier. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. The moment I saw the handwriting, I recognized it. It was my grandfather's. With trembling hands, I began to read. "My dear Mia, if you're reading this, I probably won't be here anymore. A company's future isn't built by machines. It's built by the people who dare to create new ideas. You've accomplished something none of us ever could. If anyone ever tries to take away what you've earned, don't stay silent. Remember, respect isn't given to those who ask for it. It's earned by those who have the courage to speak the truth." Tears filled my eyes. I carefully folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. Walter spoke softly. "Your grandfather wanted you to lead this company one day." I stared at him in disbelief. He lowered his head. "But after he passed away, your father told the board that you'd walked away from the company, that you had no interest in coming back." It wasn't easy to hear. For years, I had believed I simply wasn't important to my family. The truth was exactly the opposite. 3 months later, the official investigation into the forgery was complete. The investors permanently canceled the acquisition. The board of directors asked my father to resign. Without protest, he stepped down. Chloe also resigned from her position as marketing director. A few days later, she sent me a short message. I never thought it would go this far. I never replied. Some wounds heal with time. Others, only with distance. 6 months later, I was back in Chicago, running my own company. One afternoon, the very same investors who had planned to buy Bennett Acoustics walked into my office. This time, their offer was different. "We're not interested in doing business built on forged signatures. We want to work with the person who created the original designs." This time, the signature on the contract was truly mine. And for the first time, no one tried to erase my name. The following Christmas arrived. I didn't go back to Ohio. Instead, I completed a new acoustic system for a children's hospital in Chicago, creating quieter, more peaceful rooms for young patients. That evening, a message appeared on my phone. It was from my mother. "Merry Christmas. The house feels very quiet." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed just one sentence. "Sometimes silence is the only way people finally hear the truth." I set my phone down. Outside my window, snow continued to fall. And after so many years, I finally understood something. Silence isn't always loneliness. Sometimes, silence is the sound of freedom. If you enjoyed this story, and you'd like to hear more emotional, realistic, and thought-provoking family drama stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to like this video, and let us know in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Mia's place? Your thoughts mean a lot to us, and your support inspires us to bring you more powerful stories every week. Thank you so much for watching.